Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
Here's a bonus video for those of you who may have watched the live TLDR broadcast as we broadcast on YouTube. Ended up having problems towards the end of it, so I stopped the broadcast, recording this video separately from it, so this is new. No one really has seen this unless you were watching it through live.perillo.com, a completely separate system for broadcasting. When I was asking for questions, really couldn't find any from the live YouTube chat box. Maybe you can join us tomorrow and throw in your own questions, or post them to lockergnome.net. I picked up one question that I thought was pretty interesting on lockergnome.net, and this was asked, I believe, by Zedric14. Will piracy ever die? Actually, I take that back. It was asked by GPPL. Will piracy ever die? No, it won't. You could say that at one point in time in my life, I pirated music. I recorded music from the radio and shared these cassette tapes as mixtapes with friends. I also received music by way of cassette tape from friends I met online. And actually, because of receiving those tapes, I ended up buying a lot of music. I learned about new bands like Moxie Fruvis. They became one of my favorite bands of all time. And unfortunately, they're no longer together. But had it not been for piracy, I would not have found out about Moxie Fruvis. And, having spent more money than even that one album was worth, I think Moxie Fruvis would have been thrilled about that. In fact, if I remember correctly, they allowed their fans to record and share their live shows with other people to help get the word out. The Grateful Dead did that. In fact, they may still do that, as far as I know. I'm not a Grateful Dead fan, by any stretch of the imagination. So, will piracy ever die? No, it won't. I think it's in our nature to want to share, but sometimes taking too much can ruin the ecosystem instead of helping it. So had I liked the band, Moxie Fruvis, and went and found every one of their albums, and at that point they only had, I think, one. Really, it was just that one album. I caught them early on. Bargainville. Oh, you want a good album. So, and I think you can still listen to Moxie Fruvis, various albums of theirs on online services. But since the band no longer exists, I don't know where you're going to be able to find their music, but they're worth a listen. If I had gone out and asked for more cassette tapes and not paid for them myself, I think that would be a problem. Because if I liked a band, I would want them to continue. I would kill. If the band came back and said, you know what, we'd like to continue, we need your support. If you pledge $20, $50, $100, I absolutely would. I would spend $100 of my own money or more to get Moxie Fruvis back together. I liked the band that much, but only because of what could be deemed as piracy. Someone dubbed a cassette tape. Piracy, I would say, can work. Where it doesn't work is when you have the option to buy something and you don't. Or if you take, from the system without giving back in some way. And I think that's where there's a disconnect between the value of sharing and, taking, but not giving back. And there's a, really I would say a fine line between the two. I do not advocate piracy on any level, even though at one point in the past, I got to tell you, that's what people did. We shared cassette tapes. It wasn't a big issue because you couldn't scale up. I mean, I would never, go down to the corner and buy a bootleg. I never did that. But, between friends, they make a mixtape. They let you listen to it. You end up buying more from those bands that you like. Honestly, what was the harm of that? What was the harm? I gave back to the system. I made that band more money by buying their albums and going to concerts and buying their paraphernalia than I would have otherwise. I never would have known about it had piracy not taken place, but I gave back. So piracy won't disappear. And no matter how many impositions are and roadblocks are put up in front of people, I don't think that's going to change. And I think if the industries because there's more than just one. We're talking more than just music when we talk about piracy. If they don't adapt to that change, if they don't make it easy, if they don't stay current with the times, they will suffer more than they would if they accommodated and they listened as to why people took, because they were trying to make it convenient for them. What you have to be mindful of if you are someone who takes is that you should also give back in one way, shape, or form. Not that I advocate piracy, not that I support it. It's something, how can you say that you could support something like that? Still, it was a part of my past. Honestly, it wasn't an issue. At least it wasn't as much of an issue as it became when sharing became scalable. We as human beings want to share. If these industries would let us do this and make it easier for us, I'm guessing piracy would not just die, it would just not even be an issue. But they don't make it easy. They throw up, roadblocks, DRM, outrageous pricing mechanisms, draconian policies, licensing schemata. Just make it easy, dude. If they made it easy, it just would not be an issue. This is one of the reasons why I think a lot of today's subscription services for media are taking off. Because it's easy. And these industries aren't built on the model of easy. And this is exactly why they're having problems. They're fighting their own users. And that's why piracy is going to continue down the path that it's on right now. Will it die? Maybe at some point in the very distant future. But it's only going to die when these companies or any one of these artists that lock their media down, if they're not getting what they need from you and you're not giving it to them when you should and could, that's where the breakdown occurs. Give them what they need, give back to the system, and you theoretically should be happier. I don't understand how people can say, oh, I like that band. Really? How many albums did you buy? Nothing. I got them all online. Did you pay for access? No, I don't pay anything. Well, if that's the service that you're using supports them in another way, shape, or form, it's the way the industry's going. Ease trumps everything. Sharing is everything, but only when you're giving back. It's a bilateral system. It's not unilateral at all. It goes two ways. It's not just taking. It's giving back in one way, shape, or form or another. So be curious to know if you think piracy will ever die. I don't believe it will. And honestly, if anybody disliked this video, they probably didn't listen to it. Because I'm telling the industry, it needs to change. I've always said, having put content out there for free or even selling content, if people don't want to steal your content, you have bigger problems than if they are stealing your content.